In fact, he says there's a million different ways to get wealthy, but there's only one way to stay wealthy. What two things does it take to win a soccer game? It takes a really good defense and a good offense. A few hours ago, I was watching my oldest son play soccer, and something happened that I had never seen before as a dad, with all 5 of my kids enjoying sports, but one of my kids was playing goalie. They actually had my son play goalie for part of the second half. He's never played goalie before. He's the tallest kid on the team. He just turned 14. He's about 5'10". He normally plays sweeper, the last line of defense, and he enjoys that. But today, their normal goalie was gone, and so they asked him to play goalie. I guess he'd done that a little bit in practice, and he did a good job. He had some good saves. Nobody scored while he was goalie. The game ended up 1-1, so it was a tie game. But to win a soccer game, you need good offense and good defense. And in chapter 5 of his book, The Psychology of Money, Morgan Housel talks about kind of the offense and defense of wealth. And he basically says that there's 2 different skill involved for being able to save money than the skill of being able to make money. So chapter 5 of his book, he calls it getting wealthy versus staying wealthy. In fact, he says there's a million different ways to get wealthy, but there's only one way to stay wealthy. I guess you could say 2 ways. He said kind of a constant paranoia and also frugality, like not spending more than you make. Housel tells a story of Jesse Livermore, who was the best stock trader of his day. He'd made a lot of money, and actually on a day when the market crashed and so many people lost everything, and a lot of people that were playing the market were taking their lives and everything, and his wife was so concerned about what would happen, and he came home that day almost in shock, and he said he had shorted the market on that day, so he had made a killing. In fact, Housel says in his book, I think that it would have been equivalent to something like $3 billion in our day. He had done incredibly well. And so on that day when so many people lost everything, he in one day had made the equivalent of $3 billion. And yet Morgan Housel goes on to say how Livermore, after that 1929 blowout, continued to make bigger and bigger bets, still chasing the accumulation of money, and ended up with nothing, and finally taking his own life. So in other words, he was really good at making money, but not good at keeping money. You could have a soccer team that scores a lot of goals, but if you have a horrible defense, you could still lose games. So there's 2 different skill sets, one involved in making money, another involved in keeping money.